calling to order this joint workshop of the City Council of the City of Bandera and the Bandera Economic Development Corporation. It's Thursday, January 28th, 2021. It is 6:07 in the conference center at the Best Western Hotel. All council members are present, and Laura Davenport, you're over there. Laura Lasoya, Christine Morse, Darcy Hasty, and myself represent the EDC. Item 2 is the candidates. Oh, it's you? Okay. Before we get started into actually talking with you folks, I want to give you a little background on how the EDC came to be and what it constitutes the eligibility for a board of director and a board. In November 7th of 1995, there was a proposition on the ballot to create a 1/2 cent sales tax to be used for, I'm going to read directly off the ballot of the proposition, the adoption of sales and use tax within the rate of 0.5% as authorized by Section 4B, Article 5190.6 VTCA, as amended, the Development Corporation Act of 1979, with the proceeds thereof used and applied to the purposes authorized by the Act, including but not limited to the use exclusively for water, sewer, drainage, and street improvements, and the maintenance and operating costs associated with such projects. That's the first step. So, then we rock along, and in 1997, Council passes another resolution on January the 9th, creating the Bandera Economic Development Corporation. And they expand the use of the funds. They, in fact, just to briefly go over this whole thing, development of the Bandera Economic Development Corporation, a nonprofit corporation for the exclusive purpose of benefiting and accomplishing public purposes of the city of Bandera, Texas, by promoting or developing new or expanded business enterprises in the city of Bandera through projects which should assist in retention of existing local business and industry, and which promote and develop new or expanded business enterprises, including without limitation projects to provide public safety facilities, streets and roads, drainage and related improvements, demolition of existing structures, general municipality-owned improvements, as well as any improvements or facilities that are related to any of these projects, including without limitation, wells, water, wastewater, storm drains, and then it goes on, blah, blah, blah. These are available to you in the public. Just fill out a public request form and you can review that, but also it's history. So then we get up here, that's how we got started. So in 2017, Stewardship Strategies produced this for us. It's a Bible. The Bible needs to be updated. Not the Bible, I'm sorry. This book needs to be updated. But I want to read to you from the state statute what constitutes a board of directors of a Type B corporation. This is coming from 505052 of the local government code. And it starts out 502B. Each director of a Type B corporation authorized to be created by a municipality with a population of less than 20,000 must A, be a resident of the municipality, B, be a resident of the county in which the major part of the area of the municipality is located, or within 10 miles of the municipality, well, we don't know, we're right in the middle of the county, so C, 3 directors of a Type B corporation must be persons who are not employees, officers, or members of the government body of the authorized municipality. And then that's all that has to say, except for termination, we don't intend to terminate. However, in the bylaws of the EDC, the most recently amended version says the board of directors is still 7 directors, 5 who are citizens of the city, and 2 in the county must have storefronts within the city. Now, that's in contradiction. Originally, we had adopted this more liberal part of the local government code, because Bandera is a 1 square mile piece of property. And there's so many people who are really, really have the education, the assets, the experience to bring something to the EDC and not necessarily have a storefront. But that being said, where we stand now, we have 1 county director and 3 from the city. So that leaves 3 vacancies, right? Am I right? Yes, we have a majority. Yeah, we've got 4 on the board, so we're missing 3. Any comments from council? Okay. I'm going to go through the stack of.
Yeah, I have a comment actually.
Sure.
So is it your intention then to open up for discussion with the folks that are here? So I want to make a comment about one of what you said about the requirements for the board. We had, maybe under the advice of the attorney and maybe the intention of the idea that we would open up our regulations to match the state statute to make them less restrictive. And I, for one, would like to see this come back before the council because that intention was derailed. We limited ourselves to a number of intellectual community resources by creating that limitation, which is more restrictive than state statute, and for a community this small, I don't personally see the value in doing that. But having said that, I don't think we should limit our discussion to the current vacancies because, as was discussed, several of the city, well, you, Tony, Christine, these are intended to be temporary seats, temporary fillers. Our EDC has been derailed for over a year and really non-functioning. Part of my intention for requesting this workshop was to not only have some open discussion about the focus and the future of the EDC, the budget around that, and to hear input from some of you who have graciously served on our EDC in the past and maybe want to again, if we can manage to get it together. So it's my hope that we would really be able to visit with everybody here, answer any comments that come in through the Zoom from, relevant to the topic, and that we have a very inclusive conversation here forward.
And that was Mayor Tim, Rebecca Gibson, by the way. Any other comments from council? Okay, what I would like to do, I'm going to go through the list of all the applications. If you're here, just raise your hand, let me know you're here. Nancy Harvey, I know you're here. Donna Ross. Thank you, Donna. Lauren Ojeda.
Right
Good
here.
morning. Mark Corona. Is it Corona or Corona?
Corona,
Corona,
not like the
thank
virus.
you.
Virus free.
Billy Greason. Is Mr. Greason on the Zoom? Jill?
No. No.
Alan Atterbury.
Arterberry.
I'm sorry. Mark Crawford says he's got a lot to do. Jared Wilcox is here. Did I miss anybody who's here that? Okay. Then here's our folks. I would like to know if you have questions or comments for the council.
I have a comment.
Sure.
I see Andrea and Laura both here who have served in the past and I believe are still interested in being on the board. So just because anyone's application is not in front of us, I don't want to exclude anybody from the conversation. Thanks for being here. Mayor, you have a question?
Yes.
From
Yes, Mr. Atterbury.
Legally, there's a
responsibility. You said it's NG Rail. I think that's a very nice action for a year. Isn't there a legal responsibility for the city council, which manages, I think, the EDC? I'm a new here. I'm only 2.5 years in council. To make sure this gets done legally correct.
I agree. Yes, Rebecca.
I'd like to make a comment, and I might not be answering your question, but I'd like to elaborate on that a little bit. We have in the past had EDC board members that did extensive work to ensure that the EDC was following guidelines and working with attorneys before decisions were made and votes were cast. At this point, the corporation, I feel the only real obligation is to have this, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, but this annual report, the annual corporation report to council. But it should, and this is partially maybe my opinion and maybe partially more than that, but it should function independently in cooperation with, and we've had a lack of cooperation. Yeah, well, hopefully we'll be here to hopefully we'll be remedying that.
Darcy?
And I'd like to elaborate even more on that and say, not only in cooperation of, but if you look at the members on the EDC independently of, because the EDC keeps repeatedly being made up of members of city council. And I hope that the members that are there, my personal hope is that, they're only there temporarily to hold spots until we find qualified members to be there. That's my personal opinion. And I've said that for 2 years now, so.
Any other comment?
This is for you guys too. This is your workshop as well for comment and discussion.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good insight for a newbie, by the way. I think you're picking up on the fact that we did have a very functioning EDC. We had a well-rounded EDC. They came from a lot of different backgrounds. They all came from, for the most part, very professional careers. When we did the 2017, she attributed that to stewardship strategies, but that was actually the board at the time decided that they wanted to do more. They wanted to be more of an economic development. We had money in the bank that past EDCs had not taken advantage of and had not put that money into the community. So that board made a decision, worked with the council very well to get this manual together. And it is a very good manual, and it is based on the statutes that the EDC umbrella, that we fall under legally. And although it's very nice to know what the intention was for the original creation, that does not, it clearly states that it is not limited to the funding city projects like streets and sewers and water and wastewater. And the board that I was a part of at the time that put this manual together, we were more focused on true economic development in the true sense of the word, and not just funding a city that couldn't manage itself, because the streets and the water and the wastewater had been neglected for quite some time. And so we were wanting to focus on the city itself and building economic development and focusing on increasing property tax, increasing sales tax, which ultimately gives the city more money. And the city council at that time was focusing on really getting a good, strong foundation at the city, putting the right people in the right jobs, getting the budgets right, and having a long-term plan, redoing the master plan so that they have a vision. Those of y'all that don't know me, I grew up in this town. My ancestors founded this town, and it's very close to my heart. So when I moved back home 11 years ago, I wanted to be involved and I wanted to make a difference. And I started out on the P&Z. I went to the EDC. I was on council before, and I'm on council again now. And in this, I found that there was really all these independent organizations that were not working in unison with each other, which is a tough job when an EDC only meets once a month, the P and Z only meets once a month, and city council meets twice a month, and you can't meet outside of the meetings. You have to do everything publicly. So nobody really had a guide to, on what's our long-term plan. If somebody's coming and they're wanting to invest a business in our town, what is it that we give them that say, what's our long-term goal for this city, and where are we going to focus development? What are we going to focus on? How are we want to do a community plan? And so from the time I got on council the first time, we had wanted to redo the master plan. That's in the works now, and that's part of the economic development budget as of this year to support that. There's another, we've applied. The city's in a lot better place than it used to be. We've applied for grants and loans, and we have a plan for our streets and that kind of stuff. So again, the economic development budget this year, it was requested by the city that some of the money get put toward that to assist them, which is great. The other piece to it that I really think is important is there's an economic theory out there called opportunity cost. And you have $1 and you only have one opportunity to spend it. So you either spend it in something like very valuable, like a street, or you put it into or you spend it and you invest it where it returns more than just $1. And so we, as the other EDC, were very focused on, and Andrea was included in that, but we, as was Laura and myself, I think that was it. That's all that's in the room now. But we all talked about, we tried some new things. We tried investing in new businesses. We found out that did not work for us. We talked about that. We decided we were not going to do that, but we did not remove any of that from what Suzanne called the Bible. And so anybody that would be involved in the economic development, what I'm looking for in a candidate, and I can only speak for myself, is what I'm looking for in a candidate is someone to think outside the box. Everybody sees our town and how it's growing and it's prospering, and there's, the real estate transactions in this town are insane. Again, we are only 1 square mile, and that's where our sales and use tax comes from. That's where our property tax comes from. But you remove all of the county properties, all of the church properties, all of the nonprofits that don't pay property tax, and think of the business that we do in that 1 square mile. That's a huge burden on the city. And so if we don't use our dollars wisely that we have allocated for this budget on an economic development corporation, if we don't have a plan and use them wisely, then I think we are missing a huge opportunity. And so for me, for what I'm looking for on my vote on council is to look for people that have good, sound minds, experience. And I'm not just talking about experience in economic development. I'm talking about maybe in other towns or have different ideas that we can bring. We need to get this community back working together and really focusing on how we spend our money. And I think the city's in a much better place. And we were chastised quite a bit for doing these things that were so outlandish. And so California, we were accused to be California all the time, and things that we were doing were illegal. But in the fundamental, it is economic development, and that is what that corporation and that is what that budget is for. And I think it's extremely important for people to get on board on that, to utilize that budget and to move forward and learn from your lessons. I mean, we don't have a whole lot of money. We can't afford to lose a whole great deal, but the money that we voted on and that we have allocated, I think we all came to the table and discussed it quite thoroughly and were convicted in our votes. And after the fact, we learned from our lessons and we decided we weren't doing some of that stuff again. So those all lessons can be learned and we can share those. And I think it's important for us not to do that again. But I'll thank you for the floor, but I really think it's important for people to know that just because this is what it's created, that's not what the state allows now. And I think we need to take opportunity from that. Thank you.
When this was created, it was under what was called the Economic Development Act of 1979, which was later codified into chapters 501 through 506 of the local government code. So they took their little, whatever that act was, and expanded on it, because you'll read through here as you read through the local government code that it was changed in 2007, updated again in 2009, and I haven't looked through it other than in here to see if there's any updates since then. But yes, it's a very broad spectrum of things that an EDC can take part in.
And the oversight, the entity that has changed too. The economic development has moved in the state of Texas, and some of that has expanded as well.
Yes. And comments, questions,
Ideas?
council?
Is it a fiduciary factor here when you have a dysfunctional board and there's money in that account, so to speak, about what's being done with it?
You want me to address that?
I can take that if you want me to. You want to do
I mean,
it?
does
No,
the
go ahead.
council have a fiduciary responsibility?
So,
Council.
yeah, so the council has oversight, and they're the ones that is the final approval for the budget and for the guidelines. So once the budget is approved, then like Rebecca said, the EDC kind of works independently on within that budget and where they can allow money. Like we have several organizations in the area that that utilize EDC money to promote their annual events. And they do them for 3-day weekends, which increases hot tax, which increases, sales tax. And so you regenerate that fund. And so we support those through advertising. Advertising is allowed for that. But as far as the responsibility goes, it is the ultimate oversight of the council to make sure that the EDC is functioning within the approved budget, which they did. Did I answer that question? Okay.
And
Rebecca's got.
go ahead, I didn't know.
Okay, and I want to comment about this budget, although we haven't looked at it yet. When we prepared this budget, unlike previous EDCs, we did not budget for every penny the EDC has. We budgeted for the projected sales tax and moving out of our reserves just enough to cover the projects that are in that. But there's still 100,000 if the projections are correct in the bank, plus 100,000 in CDs. So at the time that this was being discussed, we had originally as an EDC put 50,000 in there for
Incentives.
enterprise projects, whatever they were. And council moved it over into the street project. But I said at the time, there is more money. If we have just somebody glaring right in our face that we need to help, if there's a big disaster, something, whatever, we do have the money for economic development or economic expansion in this particular fiscal year if this budget plays out. So it's not like we budgeted every penny this year. There's 200,000 in the bank that if we need to pull out, we can do that. Yes, Rebecca.
One thing I was going to mention is that the EDC Corporation does have their own independent audit annually. And then the other thing I wanted to mention too, there's also a real estate asset that the EDC has.
Yes.
And then there are other ways the EDC can attract a cool industry. Like say there was like a boot manufacturing company that wanted to come to Bandera, or a hat maker, some type of relevant industry. Then the EDC does have other tools and methods of being creative with their resources to promote and recruit and attract businesses that are relevant to the community, that enhance the community.
Darcy.
I'm gonna say for Laura Davenport had something, and then if you don't mind, you have the
Yes,
floor
Laura.
after.
I was just going to add something to answer his question. Anything that's over $10,000 in the
Council has to approval.
doesn't purchase.
Right, regardless of whether or not it's been budgeted for or not.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
Yes, Darcy. Oh, I'm sorry.
And then also as city council did do, I think after I was removed off of EDC, froze what EDC could do. The money's going out other than what was already promised. So council does have the ability to do that. So city council can freeze any more promises to be made. So kind of stop, hey, guys, I don't necessarily think that what you're doing right now is the best practice for right now. So until we do things like this and talk to the public and get the right board in place, then we're not going to promise any more monies. So there are, as we've been discussing, more avenues to take with the EDC.
And I want to throw this number out at you that our sales tax revenue, the city as a whole, the EDC's portion and the city's whole as a whole, is double what our ad valorem taxes are. And if you remove the nonprofit businesses, buildings, whatever in the city, that's an amazing amount of tourism, an amazing amount of local shopping, people who live here and shop here, people who make day trips here. And Patricia can tell you much more about that. Patricia Moore is the director of our Convention and Visitors Bureau. And she's always available for conversations too. But our sales tax numbers are startling. They're staggering, in fact, for a city with less than 1,000 people population.
I'd like one other thing.
Yes, Tony.
I'd like to say one other thing too. This whole year has been a strange event for all of us. We, in the beginning, we were wondering how things were going to play out after we'd budgeted all of this money. And then all of a sudden in March, after the first quarter, we were, everybody was kind of brought to their knees. And we found that people are shopping locally at a lot of our box stores, like True Value. We are newly acquired, Tractor Supply. Lowe's has gotten more business than they probably ever have. We've got the other box stores and stuff, and their sales have been so increased that our EDC budget and our sales tax budget really has not been affected as much as what we would have expected, because people are shopping more locally. And I know that the smaller businesses, because we're lacking in the tourist traffic, the people that are walking around town in the little shops, which to me is the part that we really needed to be focusing on this year, that we didn't, because that's what makes us us, is our unique little shops. It's not the big shops, it's the little ones. It's our restaurants, it's our unique little boutiques and the unique things. And so to me, I really feel like there was a missed opportunity in some of our local business supporting organizations, such as Chamber of Commerce and Better Business Bureau and the EDC. I think that there was a missed opportunity to really pull in from local communities and figure out what we could do locally, and get local people out and shop, and getting them in the habit of shopping more, because they were at home. A lot of them were at home with their children. And so we could have taken opportunity with that, and we missed it. And so I think we're still in the pandemic, there's still a chance to continue to do that. But I think that those are the ideas that we need to be focusing on is our community and get our village back. Because I know it's very convenient and people like to shop at H-E-B on their way home from work if they're traveling outside the community. But we really had a lot of people that were local this year and could have been involved a lot more. So, it is what it is, and let's learn and move forward. So.
And to give you a solid number, our EDC sales tax revenue exceeded the budget by $35,000.
It was shocking. Yeah,
$35,000.
it's
Shocking number. And this year, the first quarter, October, November, December, EDC's received nearly $91,000, which is a third of our budget. So if we can just keep these numbers up, there's so much good we can do.
But the point that I was attempting to make, and I'm not really sure I brought it home, was that our big box stores are supporting us through sales tax. Mm-hmm. And what we needed to be doing is redistributing that somehow to promote the smaller businesses, which make us unique, that don't exist in other towns. And so by having our budgets not affected as much, we should have been focusing more on what the little guy needs in order to stay in business. And so I get the fact that we have the sales tax money. I get that. And that's a great thing. But I mean, we are looking for an overall economic development and diversifying. And if we keep not focusing on really what's happening, then, I think we're missing out.
Well, here's where you and I,
Rebecca's got her hand up.
That's okay.
Rebecca.
You go ahead, finish your thought.
I think here's where you and I have different views of what's going on right now. yes, I agree. We can always support economic expansion, economic development. But if we don't have the infrastructure for those developments, for instance, you know, EDC put up $120,000 just for infrastructure for this project.
I was on the EDC and I supported it wholeheartedly.
Well, we all did. I'm not saying
No, I
we
know, but
didn't.
we don't differ in that. We
Okay,
don't differ
okay.
in that.
But what I'm saying is infrastructure throughout the entire, like the upgrade in the water system, the upgrade in the sewer relocation, if we ever get that one off the ground, the new drainage project, the street project, I think is really important. It's a $2 million project.
Oh, I agree. It
And
should be
so-
done in unison.
But
no
we
doubt.
do have
Yeah.
the money, should somebody come up with some plan.
Right.
That we can spread the money around. Rebecca.
Are we gonna do all the
Rebecca first,
talking,
and
y'all?
I know.
I want to hear from you guys for real, but something that I just wanted to add a little bit of is I really do see the value in assisting with some of the infrastructure, particularly to the extent that it directly impacts the businesses that it affects, whether that be through sidewalks, new water pipes, and as they're coupled with projects that the city are already doing. So I would like to see in a EDC the ability to find some kind of balance between the two, and that recognizes the value of both aspects, because the master plan, with whatever it's going to include, which by the way, you guys all, I hope you're there on February 11th at 11th Street Cowboy Bar at 5 o'clock. That the efforts are combined, the efforts are coupled, and I know that the city, we as a council and administration have for years been really aggressive about getting our hands on free funding for these infrastructure projects. So I know there's a desire to have the EDC pitch in for some of that too. And if there could just be some creative thinking and a balance and like a compromise that those efforts could be coupled and work together. Because you invest in the building, you invest in the infrastructure. I mean, the business could come and go, but the good stuff, so the next great business that moves in is going to remain. And that's what we want to invest into, I hope, I think. So,
Are you finished?
yeah.
Jerry?
I do agree with Rebecca on a lot of what you just stated. We need to consider utilizing more of the EDC funds for infrastructure than what we have done in the past. I think we're going to end up in big trouble if we don't start deciding how we're going to pay for these existing projects that we have in place. The city has a minimum 15 and as much as $25 million or more in projects that we've already committed to. And we haven't even discussed how we're going to pay for any of that.
How many?
You have a
million?
question?
You looking at
We
me?
can hear you.
I can go
No,
through
I-
that real quick. We're looking at, and these are approximates. The city street project, the CIP, we've got $4 million plus there,
Less than three.
right? Huh?
It's less than three is the way it's projected now,
Well, now, because we've paid into it some.
but we'll look at it again in
The
3 or 5
project
years.
was $4 million. We've got another 6 to 8 million for the FIF, the Flood Infrastructure Fund.
Maybe.
Go
We haven't
ahead.
committed to any of
That's
that
okay.
either. We haven't committed, we're not committed
No,
to
but
that.
these are important projects
Well, that is
that we've
part
agreed upon.
grant and part
That we're
0% lump.
we're trying to. Then we've got the wastewater treatment plant that we could be in for as much as 16 to 18 million on that. I know that we're looking at a $10 million grant, but that's not bird in hand, and we have to plan for the worst case scenario.
Well, that one is
My
still
thoughts
pretty
on it.
far off. so.
I'm fully supportive of anything and everything we can do for businesses. I have business. My business depends also on other businesses' existence, just to attract people in here. But I also know that we've got to prioritize how we're going to utilize this money, how we're going to come up with the money to pay for these projects, because these are extremely important. And things such as facades on the buildings, that I think the city's done a great job supporting that, and I'll continue to support that. I think that and this is not of any fault, like Tony had mentioned, it's a learning experience on a lot of this stuff, but dedicating huge money, I feel, to going what I call behind the front wall, buying kitchen equipment and those type of things. Those are the kind of things that need to be planned for by the business owner in their growth plans.
Comments?
Please let Jared go first, because then I probably won't have to say anything.
Jared?
So y'all have encouraged us to talk, and I can only assume that it's because you want to hear ideas from the candidates before y'all decide. So my thoughts on this is when it comes specifically to the EDC, the EDC encompasses everything, and it's got to be a wagon wheel. You can't focus purely on roads, even though that needs to be there. You can't focus purely on the small business. You can't put one of your focuses or all your focus onto one item. Otherwise, you always wind up reactive instead of proactive. So with that wagon wheel, if one spoke's missing or one spoke's significantly shorter than all the rest of them, that wheel doesn't turn. So you've got to be able to look at all of that as a whole encompassing. If our roads aren't good, we're not going to get the bikers up here that come up every weekend on the day drives. We're not going to get as many RVers coming up here because they're not going to want to bounce their RVs down crappy roads, right? I can tell you going into business right on Main Street that the building owners on Main Street don't want to sell the buildings, but they also don't want to put anything into the buildings. So as a leasee, I'm going in and finding that the rainstorm the night before dumped water all over my $30,000 lasers, right? So we need stuff for those buildings, and we need a way for those building owners to be incentivized in order to do all this different stuff. But it's got to be all, you got to look at everything. Otherwise, you're just going to be reactive, not proactive.
Darcy had her hand up before Jared spoke.
Well, and I want to say too that, I'm going to agree with Rebecca and Jared too, on the fact that you have to have that balancing act where, we do need Main Street for the bikers to be able to get down and the RVs to be able to get down, and EDC money can be used for that. Do I think that we need to take that big $150,000 chunk that council did before I got on council out of the budget for EDC and throw it into street infrastructure? No, I don't think so. That's a huge amount when you only get a 0.5% for the EDC budget, period. So that's something that, when it goes to just putting it in infrastructure, yeah, we've got to have a wastewater plant. We have to. That money is going to be written. It's going to go, it's not going to be that high, probably half if I have anything to say about it by the time we get done, between the grants and what we've been told about stuff. So, I don't think we're going to be spending $20 million on a wastewater treatment plant. But, and the roads, we have a plan for that. We've got a 7-year plan for that. So to sit here and throw numbers out that are big and scary to everybody, I don't think is fair when they're not accurate. So, keep your ear out for accurate numbers. And, businesses need money. They need help, and that's what the EDC is there for. And that's what city council's here to listen to people too, and hear what the businesses have to say and what they need. And it's our job too to make sure that everybody in the city, whether you live here or you work here or you come and visit, have what you need. So.
Yes, Nancy.
One of the things that concerns me, and I think both the EDC and the city council need to address, and it can be done as a joint effort, is the lack of ADA accessibility in 90% of the places in this town. I am fortunate in that my building has got a ramp, but my threshold is not. But I had a little boy come in a month ago, and he had tears in my eyes. And they said, ma'am, you're the only school that I can plan to wrap around. We are no longer, although we love to play, we are no longer in the 1800s. We have to face reality. You know, to watch this couple that I know here in town have to physically go get a ramp so that she can get up in OST. You know, these are things that could come back and bite us hard. So economic development is not to me just the facade on a building. I know that one well. But it's also making it where people can actually access what we have so that they can appreciate what we do here. You know, I am a firm believer in everything that Bandera is all about, and I have been since the day I got here. But there are some real issues. For example, going up the ramp from OSD down towards the bank. Those safety strips need to be replaced. That is a minimal expense. Takes no time at all. I just picked up a whole set for my house for less than $30. It's little things, along with the big things, that are gonna make this whole thing work out for all of us.
I would absolutely agree with what Nancy's saying. And so, although the Economic Development Corporation can come up with that, it takes involvement from the community to come with a plan and to keep it going and to champion it. That's how we got the Sandage Park revisited. I mean, there's lots of projects that we have supported from economic development. That's how we got our murals. You know, there was people in the community that said, this is what we want. And they came to us and said, we'll take this on. And then you tell us the requirements. Many of our building infrastructure and our facades had a requirement of adding, it was a matching grant, and it was adding ADH compliant. So all of the buildings that you see that are renovated, a lot of them were built in that because we were able to give them from the economic development, we were able to give them money, just like Jared said, was like, you've got to incentivize these building owners that are letting these buildings go to seed. Like for instance, we were a huge major part and still are of the of the 11th Street Mercantile. That is our original Main Street in Bandera. That was the original building in Bandera that was going to seed because the owner of that property, as it changed hands, did not take care of it. And so it ended up being a major undertaking. And now we have a wonderful, historic, well-restored, ADH compliant, old building that people can get to. And the economic development was a part of that. And that was a partnership with the building owner. And so I think those things are important. I think the historic building is extremely important. And I think the ADH compliant, as those things are being remodeled, it doesn't take that much money to do it as they're already doing it. So if you can give them a little bit of money to say, hey, can you do this? Then you know, it really jazzes things up and it makes people excited. But you know, some people that own the buildings can't do that. And so we need a champion to go around and get the business owners on board and the property owners. And we need a board that works outside of the one meeting a month with the community. And with that said, I will make sure that it's very important that you don't misrepresent the EDC, because you are a board, one of 7, which if you've already discussed and made a decision, made a motion, and you've been the one that's supposed to be doing that, and you've already discussed it as a board, then absolutely. But it's important not to represent yourself, your individual opinions and your individual ideas when you're out there as a part of a board, as is the council. I mean, any board that you're a part of, especially under TOMA, which is the Texas Open Meetings Act, it's really important that you're clear who you're representing, why, and what has been discussed and voted on and what hasn't. And so I think that's probably extremely important in a candidate. So.
Hi.
Yes.
I'm Lauren Ojeda. I'm actually in Medina, and I'm here just because I absolutely love Bandera. My husband and I moved here 4 years ago, and I really love the charm you guys are talking about, and that's what brings people here. And truly, I think that the board should promote those small businesses because
husband owns two businesses that he built from the ground up, so I know a thing or two about the struggle that goes into owning small businesses, as well as my grandfather and great-grandfather started a business in New Mexico, so I kind of have some experience with what it takes, and small business does need help, and they do need that support. They do need someone going in there and saying, hey, what are your current issues? As we see with COVID, obviously they're experiencing things that they've never experienced before, and so I think that as a board member, that just needs to be a priority, especially this year more than ever, just going out there and seeing what they need and what they're hearing and how we can keep them afloat and keep them thriving. And from what I'm hearing, I really feel that there's going to be a movement that people are coming out to the smaller towns. They want to visit, and a lot of people want to move here. And I think that's only going to continue to grow, and I really hope that Bandera, that we capitalize on that, and that we support us through that, because I think that really we're in a prime position to just really expand and thrive, and, you know, I think that there's nothing but opportunity here, really, just my input.
Thank you.
I think so too.
I just want to make one observation. The part about the seats and the requirements for the seats, I think most of our applicants are county.
Mhm.
And so the state, do you remember what the exact state requirement is
You
on what
just
we were
read it.
talking about moving it to?
What was it, 505? What, you have it
Off the
handy?
top of my head, but
Oh, yes, okay.
You mark it.
505 what? Ma'am? 052?
505051.
051. Oh, wait. 7, right? Up to
Keep on
7.
Yes.
A, be a resident or be a resident of the municipality or of the county. That's it.
I didn't think it was any restricted for the city. So if we, as a council, discuss that, I mean, I think we should get that ironed out before we actually, move forward with the candidate. Well, we're not doing that tonight anyway, but I just, wanted to point that out.
And again, that's why we made it so just basic by the statute the first go round, because we were eliminating
It's not by
so
the
many.
statute. And that may have been what the state statute was when y'all did it, but the state statute has evolved and it's
No,
not.
this is the same one that we,
Because our bylaws were based on what
but 55, what is it over there?
says just the city or the county. They have to-
505.
052.
Hmm?
052 for
052.
populations under 20,000. It's what you're reading from. It's the same.
We should probably get
Yeah,
recorded.
5050. It hasn't changed.
I believe our city attorney is on the Zoom.
Deanna, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you see I have my local government code book?
I'm proud of you for having that with you.
Okay. That is it, right?
Yeah,
Well, we're
052 are
discussing-
the only restrictions. So
The
you,
state?
yeah,
Tony, it says it's got the same.
Y'all are talking, Dan can't talk, so. If you're talking to the microphone, you can't get it out. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
right. No, they're correct. So your current, you have restrictions in place, if I recall correctly, in your bylaws on membership that are not part of the state statute. So the state statute is very lenient. Right now, like I said, I think you have designated slots for a certain amount of people, which is nowhere found in the state statute. The state statute just tells you what each director must be or can be, but the only limitations are how many of those directors can be employees or officials of the governing body.
So in my
Otherwise,
mind, it's
sorry,
up
go
to
ahead.
the council at the time of the candidates that they
Thank you,
have.
Dan.
If it's less restrictive and they have to be, if they don't live in the city, they can live in the county for all 7, no restriction, right? And so based on the candidates, each council would make a decision. And if that council at the time is looking to have city residents more on the EDC, then that would be that the majority of the council would vote that way. And
Yes, Rebecca.
Yeah, I would just comment that the bylaws, I think the bylaws should reflect what the council, what the intention of the council is, so the public is aware of what the requirements are at the time, and that, oh, I was gonna say something else. What was it? Dang it. Maybe I'll think of it later, sorry. What, I don't know where it went. No, go ahead.
I have a comment to make, and this goes to council, EDC, all of you who are out there and all of you who are watching this. What I want to see is
Oh,
council. Get a functioning EDC, and I really don't want to see every council that comes along change everything, change the bylaws, change their goals, change what they want to do. Give us some consistency. You've got projects going on for years. You know, so just stop with messing around with the EDC.
I think we had that. I mean, I think we did have that until last year. We didn't have that anymore. So, and it is what it is. I mean, the council's elected and whoever's elected and they do what they want and knee-jerk reaction. And if the people in the city, because really, I mean, that's the bottom line. The city voters are the city voters and they're the ones that vote the council in, and the council has to live in the city regardless. And the council has the oversight of the EDC. So the members that are on the EDC, if the council believes that they have investment, like, you know, investments in the city, and they have the ability to bring something to the table to have a nice functioning EDC, then why does it matter that they live in the county? Or, I mean, if it's a state statute, if they allow it, then it should be up to the council, the elected council, to make sure that that board is functioning with the proper people on it, moving forward with the overall mission of the master plan and the overall mission of the council and the overall mission of the city itself. I mean, to me, the elected people are the ones that have that. So.
Andrea?
I just, wanted to, well, I guess maybe ask for clarification and elaboration on a couple comments that have been made about the EDC over the last year. So Rebecca, you said it had been derailed. Well, hold on.
yeah. Sure.
And Mayor, you referred to an inconsistency in wanting to change everything. So, I don't recollect that happening over the last year, maybe prior to that year, but, would you like to elaborate a little bit?
Sure,
on how
I'd be happy
the
to.
EDC has been derailed?
If I may. For me, it started right after the 2019 election. And and then we had the moratorium on spending. So events leading up to that, and then from then forward, it's been very hard to get things back on track from my perspective and point of view. And as far as I'm concerned, prior to that, and I know you were on that board and you were, and you may have been.
I was
Anyway.
on and then I was off.
From my seat, I think things for the most part were going really well from the formation of these incentive programs. So I think you were on a highly functioning board until it stopped functioning well. And I realized that, and maybe you have some insight for me that I'm not aware of because of my perspective and where I am. I do realize some of the necessary changes with the incentive programs, but from what it was before to what it became was a huge improvement. And then some personality stuff, maybe from some people, and maybe some other issues got involved in ways that created some conflicts. And then I know when Jerry was elected, he had a very clear intention to kind of recreate some of the spending priorities with the EDC. And I'm not in complete disagreement with any of that, but we still haven't been able to get it back on track and come together and figure out what we're going to do and really move forward. And then we had the removal of the board, and then we had a council member sitting on the board, and then we put some board members back together, and all this back and forth. And I'm just looking forward to seeing it settled and moving forward.
No, I absolutely agree. I like to see that too.
Yeah.
But I feel like the directors on the EDC are, I don't want to say getting blamed for the lack of functioning. council that removed all the members twice in that year. We had COVID, okay, and it was the city council who put the moratorium on our spending. So, you know, I just want that to be clear.
Yeah.
That, you know, we did have a fully functioning and a qualified EDC with members that were accountants, business owners. I can't even recall a person who's been on EDC that has not been qualified to do so.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not it was functioning, I don't know that that was entirely the EDC's fault.
I want to be really clear. I think the derailment came from the council side of the table, by all means. It was not my intention to put the blame on I thought that the EDC was functioning beautifully. Maybe we could have gotten together on some changes back then and avoided a lot of this mess. But to be clear, it was from my perspective, it was from the council side.
And then also I wanted to comment on what you said about the wheel thing. I feel like the wheel has been lopsided for quite some time, several years now. We were very incentive heavy, which is great. I mean, I think our business needed it. I know there's still others that do. I sense the direction is city council and maybe EDC, future EDC, is to focus more on the infrastructure, like Jerry was talking about, like you were even saying. And I think, you know, maybe that will need to be lopsided a little bit longer in the other direction because things have been neglected for so long. And so I think it's important to have a reserve there that you were referring to for things that come up. But a lot of businesses have already received funding. And so hopefully if you're going to continue to give money to businesses, it's not to businesses who have already received funding. Because there are other businesses who have not. So that's what I would hope to see. You know, and I, you know, I enjoyed serving on the EDC. It was a pleasure and an honor. I was removed twice, so I'm not going to apply again. But I will, you know, still be here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea.
Laura?
I'd like to ask some questions of the council. In your master plan, is there goal setting on what spokes you want in this wagon wheel for the EDC to focus on? I think, you know, I'm not here to rehash, I want us to move forward, but I think if we had a little bit more guidance from the council on what spokes you wanted us to focus on, I think that might also help.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
And like you said, not to rehash, but at the time that the incentive program was put together, you guys, the EDC did as the council requested at the time, which was to reference the former master plan, which we all really struggled with calling it a master plan and adhering to it. But I think what you're referring to is the master plan that's coming, which is going to include code, which I'm interested too, as we develop it so that we can answer some of these questions together as a community and then implement them between the boards.
Patricia had her hand up. Okay, go ahead, Tony.
I just want to make one, I actually was the one that requested this workshop be, because tonight is the regular meeting of the EDC on Thursday, the third Thursday, right, fourth Thursday. And I'd requested it to be a workshop for candidates to kind of understand what would be required of them. But also me sitting on council now and me going through that last year that I did, or the last 6 months that I did on EDC. I don't ever want anybody to be in that position because our board, all we wanted to do was what was required of us. And we couldn't get any direction. I mean, we had a lot of criticism, but no solution-based criticism. No, it was just constantly pull the rug out and knee-jerk reactions. And that is not what I want. I want communication. And thank you for pointing out the fact that, I mean, because some people don't have the history, but I really do feel as though it was the council that couldn't. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier. you're one of 5 when you sit on council, and you're one of 7 when you sit on EDC. And so with that, when the majority rules, the majority rules. And that's just what you got to get behind and move forward. It's kind of like whether you like the president or you don't. If you wish him to fail, then it's like sitting on an airplane and asking the pilot to crash just because you don't like the pilot. Once a decision's made, you just got to move forward and you got to make the best decision of it. And I really feel as though that's what we're doing here tonight with the workshop. I think it's a great step forward to have the communication, get information from the community. A lot of y'all are from the county and are invested for various reasons. And so if for some reason that, the seat that needs to be filled at this time by a city person, I hope that doesn't discourage you from staying involved, because there's so many other organizations that can contribute. So thank you.
Okay, Patricia, did you want to speak?
What I hear everybody say, both council and Andrea and everybody sitting here, is the direction the EDC needs. The EDC has separate funds, a funding source, which is the sales tax, which is given very specific parameters of how it can be spent to benefit the community. We're all very aware in this room that the infrastructure situation is critical in the community. So you've spoken of derailing, okay? There's one thing that is written in stone in the EDC requirements. You cannot spend more than 10% of your budget on advertising and promotion. To kind of get past this derailing and grabbing from Peter to pay Paul, because I've said in meetings, and I'll bring up another topic, parks. EDC, because I sat on it for a while, we always put funds in there for the parks, but the city council never came and told us what they wanted it for. But it was sitting there in the budget, right? That's included. Take that 100% of your budget and say X percentage goes to this, X percentage goes to that, X percentage goes here. And we're at the process that every one of these issues, whether it's the small business or it's the infrastructure to support it. I, for one, lived through the very first motorcycle rally, and I lived through the rest of them. And I still do. But I was out at Mansfield Park, and I looked at a friend of mine, and I said, we made it. And they said, what are you talking about? I said, the septic system held. I'm serious. That's how critical the infrastructure can be. And talking about the Main Street streets, that truly, those are state highways. Now, the frontage, the access roads, the city has control of that. Or the, what is it, easement? Is that the right word? Well, but you know what I'm trying to say. That, yes, striping, things like that. That could be done in a heartbeat to make them look prettier and neater and more organized. But take all of these issues, because yes, to your point, we need a septic system. But let's start thinking about how much of the EDC's budget do we maybe need to set aside? Is it $5,000 a year, $10,000 a year, or $20,000 to be as a matching grant? Then we're not going to kind of have this derailing. But that kind of knowledge for anyone sitting on the EDC has to be done jointly between EDC and city council. But for longevity's sake, the council has the trump card because they've been sitting in that position the longest. Because I keep hearing the circle, and all of these are valid points, but then you really don't have derailing because somebody's going to have to go. Oh, we really do. So 20% would go to small businesses, or incentives, or whatever. And then we need, we've got a certain thing, then we know we're taking it away from where we took it. Where are we going? You shaking your head? Yeah. That makes sense what I said, Tony?
Okay, Tony.
So it's kind of like a budget and a plan.
Well, but I mean, come up with the percentage.
No, I get
points,
it.
not just a budget.
No, I get it. So just one thing that Patricia said, she mentioned parks, and we were on the EDC and we were doing some research on how to get grants and things. And one of the state grants, the things that we apply for, there's a point system, and how much park area you have in your community will get you more points. Will get you more points toward the grant. So parks is an area that EDC can focus on and can budget for and can support. And so we actually came to the EDC, to the council as an EDC and said, you know, we would like some of these areas to be zoned as parks that you're not using, that are in the flood area, which that has yet to be done. So it's just a matter of finding these things that put us in a little bit, just inch us just a little bit nose toward the finish line on just a little better standing. So those are the research and things that we need to continue to focus on.
Jared.
I've got a question for council. Y'all know I came to every council meeting, every EDC meeting up until COVID. But as somebody that's got my name in there, I know about the master plan. I think what's going to happen with the master plan is absolutely amazing, but we're still a year out from getting the finalized product on that, roughly, right?
Do you have a timeline in front of you? I don't know that it will be that long.
Approximately, yeah, probably.
So in the meantime, for any of us sitting here that are fortunate enough to get appointed to the EDC, what kind of guidance is city council going to produce from now until that master plan? So that the EDC has what they need to make the most informed decision?
That's a great question.
That's
Go
what I
ahead.
was saying.
Yes,
That's exactly what
yes,
I'm saying.
I hear you.
It's a great and
Okay.
very valid question. There is a budget in place where there are pie pieces allocated already for the 21-22 budget. So that's where you would start. And then but that doesn't mean a budgets can't be amended. And so through conversation and direction and coming to us and say, hey, we see this need and we want to focus on this, but we don't have that much in the budget, then that's when you come to council with a recommendation from the EDC that we amend your budget. And that's how that works. You're not set in stone.
So that's not set in stone, that's not amendments, but a clear, concise plan for the city to go, you know what, right now, because of the immediate need, roads are our most critical, or right now because of this, and then looking at the creative ways, but some kind of clear, concise guidance
Absolutely.
for the EDC from council to go, okay, this is what I need, I'm not going to ignore everything else, but this is where I need to focus and start getting creative in and seeing where I can help the community as a whole.
Right.
One of the most difficult things in trying to figure this relationship between EDC, the public and all, is that for many years, the city just did not even try to get any sort of funding from EDC that was already allocated for different projects because we didn't have a project. We actually need something to ask you, say, hey, can I have a couple $100,000 to, I don't know, maybe mow the grass? You know, you got to actually have a plan. And now we actually have a plan. And with the master plan, we will have so much more now that we all kind of are on the same page. I know in 2009, it was like crazy when we did this thing. But I think with a master plan and we go, okay, citizens want to work on parks. Jill's got a park grant going. This whole deal about changing some of that property down there on Maple Street, that fell apart because everybody figured out they could build a skate park without having to rezone it.
Oh,
Rezoning calls
okay.
for all this other
Okay.
stuff. So yes, those
Thank
all need to be followed through on. Absolutely.
Rebecca had her hand up.
I did. I think I'll remember this time.
Laura?
Oh, God.
I guess, in the meantime, before the master plan comes out, if the council can sit down and actually have a discussion and come up with maybe 8 goals of what you would like to do that you do.
An interim master plan.
Right.
Just some guidance, is because there needs to be that clear communication, which,
I think that's fair.
sometimes, I think, could always be.
Rebecca, did you want to say
Mhm.
something? Okay.
Okay,
Then
so
Jerry.
I think that that is one of the points of a workshop like this. to get the input from the community and to get the thoughts of the council and to start formulating that. Because yes, when the master plan is produced, we want that to be our guide. But so think of all the work we can put into it so it's really set and ready to go when it gets here. And like you said, in the meantime, I mean, I don't mind reading some of my ideas updating the Ready for Business packet. The EDC had done a really great job with that, but it's kind of outdated. So that's a project that the EDC could tackle that wouldn't involve funding anything. So it's like not one of those controversial things right now. Come up with a plan for recruitment of relevant industry. The city of Hondo did a really cool project where they highlighted vacant commercial properties, and they created these YouTube videos and found creative ways to share those out. And a lot of other communities around us and other EDCs are great resources. So there's things that an EDC could be doing to learn and to come up with strategies themselves too. The ADA compliance thing is a huge thing for us, which I feel like probably would be written into the master plan. But don't we need a survey? Somebody said you've got TxDOT, then you've got city easement. Well, really, do we? Or is there TxDOT easement? And then is there city easement? And then there's private property? So, well, right. So a survey might be helpful. Maybe that's something the EDC could fund and get on top of accomplishing. The zoning of the city properties. I'll stop there. But yeah, there's stuff to do now.
What our priorities are, I think, is what they want to know.
Jerry?
And this relates a lot to what you were saying. I think until, I keep harping on it, but until we determine how we're going to pay for our existing projects, and I don't mean to scare anybody with big numbers, Darcy, but these are factual numbers. And yes, ma'am, at least $15 million, you shake your head.
Well, it's a big difference between
Educate
15
yourself.
and 30.
Yeah, because we have that $10 million grant that we may or may not get. So that bumps it up to a potential 25 million, okay?
Or
So,
we don't do the project, big guy.
or we don't want.
Do the project. If we
Oh,
don't
really?
get the
So
10 million.
we're going to not do the wastewater treatment plant, which we're under fire by TCEQ. This is not a want. None of these are wants. These are all must-dos, not something that we just have an urge to go out there and spend money, millions of dollars on a street project. And that street project, you were saying, yeah, well, we've already got a plan. No, ma'am, we do not. We have a 7-year projection, but we have not discussed one time how we're paying for it. We don't know where that money's coming from. And if anybody would challenge me on that, I'd like to hear their opinion on it. Have we discussed one time how we're going to pay for this stuff?
Yes, we actually moved 500,000 into a CIP to start the project. We have another almost $1 million in reserve. So if this budget's out and if everything projects the way it's supposed to project, the way we're expecting it to, and with help from EDC, we'll be able to cover it.
We still, that's $1 million. What about the other 14 to 16? And that's not even including.
What 14, 16? You're talking about
I
the
already
streets?
ran through the
No,
numbers,
he's still.
and those are valid.
Let's not discuss how,
Yeah,
Jerry.
this is getting into too much. All I wanted to do
Well,
was
then
make
how
a
did-
statement.
I think your
that
numbers are wrong
I'm
to start with.
insisting, I've been trying to insist that we get together, because how can we provide direction to EDC when we don't even know how we're going to pay for this stuff ourselves? And we don't.
Well, actually, when we address this at the council meeting next week, you will see how we're paying for this stuff. The only thing that I don't have any solid numbers on is the wastewater plant, but I've got numbers on everything else.
And that's the biggest part of of that money.
Hmm?
We just found out that we had projected to stay within that $10 million grant. But our own engineers just told us that no, that project now is looking at more like at minimum 15 to 16 million. So even if we get that $10 million, we
I think
still
those
have an
numbers-
unexpected $5 to $6 million that we need to come up with.
We were
That's
just
a lot
at
of money
28
for,
million.
what's
Where's
that?
he pulling this stuff?
Well, we're not going to be able to
Because he was
fix it
talking about
tonight,
multiple
okay?
projects.
And not with the
Sorry.
$400,000 budget for the EDC. So it's something for council to discuss when we get next week. It's on the agenda. I've got everything figured out except
Good.
the
That's what I've
wastewater
been
plant. I don't even
requesting.
have solid numbers on the wastewater plant yet.
Great.
Nancy?
With all due respect, I think Brett brought up a beautiful point, that there are things that the EDC can work on and we can evaluate and we can look into and we can come up with plans that present, that do not cost money for us to do. Or the future members of the EDC, pardon me for being presumptuous. But there are things there that that can be brought to the council and say, hey, we're looking at this with a fresh set of eyes. We're looking at this as a potential to help Bandera grow. And, you know, irrespective of whether there's $20 in the pot or 20 million in the pot, here are some ideas to present. And I think that's really what this needs to be all about.
Yeah, I did have my hand up if I,
Yes, ma'am.
let me, and I am gonna go back to just, because I wanted to make a small point maybe, about what Jerry was referring to. This doesn't have a total cost. Never mind. Well,
I
he
didn't
was,
put the whole
there
packet in
was,
there.
there's the street infrastructure project, there's the flood infrastructure fund program, and there's the wastewater treatment plant. So I don't know that when Suzanne says, I don't think those are true numbers. I for one, with the flood infrastructure fund, find that the application that went into Texas Water Development Board could be scaled back a lot. I'm concerned with where the money's coming from as well. And I love the idea that Patricia had about allocating percentages to different types of programs. And I think that's what I said early on, is finding some kind of compromise. And yeah, maybe some of the old incentive programs need to be changed or done away with, or what have you. But I think that's good debate to be having together. And yeah, we do need to have a long-term plan for funding. And I know that's why our financial advisor was at council not long ago over at the Pioneer to talk to us about the good position that we were in, that we could really take this on with our current revenue. So do we want to think about offsetting a little bit of that, or some of that annually with some of the EDC funding, with some EDC contribution? I think that's really a reasonable thing to do moving forward. So yeah, I guess that's
This is just really not a forum to be discussing the whole, how are we going to fix this program? I think we should be focusing on EDC tonight. Yes, ma'am.
I would like Rebecca to talk about the February 11th that she said 5 o'clock. She said, I want you all to be there, but she didn't tell them why.
Oh.
And first of all, I'd like to thank all of y'all for not running
Pull up
from
my
the room
flyer.
a few minutes ago. That really shows tenacity, and I'm excited y'all are candidates.
So thank you. I will comment on that. I think Jill just sent me a flyer today.
Because there's the February 11th, and then there's the
Flyer.
one that's here, right?
Yes, so the February 11th is our DNA Roundup. This is going to be hosted by Simple City, which is the company that we engaged to rewrite our master plan. And what's really exciting about what they're doing is they're going to actually code the master plan, like with the development codes, with the local ordinances, so that what we see and what we desire actually matches what is in our ordinances. It's amazing, right?
And you all get to see it all and have input.
So at this meeting, this is specifically about open community input. The reason we chose 11th Street Cowboy Bar, and we hope that's not offensive to people, we're planning on starting at 5 p.m. Is that there will be good amplification for sound. There's plenty of space to spread out. And I think they're going to do something like have some kind of breakout sessions that are focused on a topic, and their desire is to extract as much community input as possible to be able to put into the next step. So from there, the next meeting will be here on February 24th.
all day and there's not a schedule out yet.
Yeah. So there's a different format for that. They're going to invite certain focus groups in and out throughout the day. So there might be like a time frame for local business owners. So you two, y'all might have like or you guys, business owners, might have like a certain time frame that you're invited to come in. And then like the Public Works Department will be invited to come in at a certain time. And so we'll look for that layout in the future. But immediately, February 11th, 11th
Please
Street
pass the
Cowboy Bar.
word. Please pass the
Tell
word.
all
I
your
mean, y'all are out
friends.
there with the businesses and talking to people that are, so. Help.
Okay, quickly,
Thanks, Tony.
Mr. Corona, we haven't heard anything from you. Do you have anything to say to this bunch up here?
He's like,
He's like, never mind.
he's been looking for his escape route for the last 10 minutes.
Ms. Ross? Oh, I'm sorry, I
He
didn't know you were
was-
speaking.
He was speaking.
I'm just saying it's a lot to take in. Not being a business owner, not really understanding what the Economic Development Council corporation was prior to tonight. Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
We have our struggles.
Ms. Ross?
I feel the same way, and I feel like I'm over my head, but as you pointed out before, it's a good learning, it's a place to come and start learning, and, because everything needs attention, and so
Yeah,
we're
right.
just, see I think there's very good people in the room here to choose from. Maybe next year, the year after, or somehow I can get involved in other ways, I don't have a window on the street, but we do have plans to, bring the horses down here and get involved in that way and keep the cowboy thing in hand for that.
There's plenty to do.
Exactly. We'll find our niche. Thank you.
Yeah, good. I wanted to just mention too,
Go ahead.
sometimes committees pop up when they need like certain attention. I was on a Keeping Bandera Horse Friendly group within a couple years back with some folks. So we did some work to promote certain things, brought an idea to council, brought an idea to EDC. So there are opportunities like that to focus on too. Or you work with your people and what you want to accomplish, and you bring it to the EDC and you bring it to the council for action. Things like that it can happen that way too. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do y'all want to go through the budget or you want to just save that for another time?
Are y'all curious about the budget?
Ma'am?
Here you
I
come.
was gonna say, if we have emails for, or if they want to leave their email, we could probably email it to them. I doubt they want to listen to us spew off numbers. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
I could be wrong. I'm okay with being wrong. If anybody,
Well, okay, let me put everybody on the spot. All of you are here tonight who've applied for EDC, or even if you didn't apply, are you still interested? Give me a hand.
awesome. Good deal. Good deal.
All right.
I think we've done,
You want to adjourn?
yeah.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Okay, Rebecca made a motion to adjourn. Darcy second. Discussion? Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all.
Appreciate all of you. Appreciate
in
all the
favor?
input.
Yeah, yeah.
All in favor.
All in favor? All in favor at
She did do that pretty well though, as far as
7:31.
like putting us all